Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where I shake my brain nipples every day so I get some of that dirty YouTube money to allow me to provide you folks hands-on technology education in Durham, North Carolina. So we're doing a class in a couple of days, 45 seats for the class. We only have one seat left open. We're going to be doing a class on OpenAI's API, showing you folks how to build little AI projects using Python and their API. And that's coming up on Wednesday, and we're going to have more going into the future. So if you're interested for those, make sure to go to silicondojo.com to see the new classes as they basically get posted. Do remember, free to the end user classes isn't actually free. It does cost some money to run these things. So there's a donor box link down below if you would like to support in-person technology education. So yeah, I guess this isn't a surprise. This isn't a shock, but it is interesting to start looking at the numbers and kind of wondering where the AI bubble is going to go from here. It's kind of funny in this modern world where a technology company can take a major hit to their profit margins, and yet their stock continues to go up. Eli, don't worry that NVIDIA has been blocked out of a country of 1.2 billion people where they have 50% of the world's AI engineers and scientists. That doesn't have anything to do with their stock price. That is the world we are currently in, which is one of the reasons I get a wee bit concerned about our stock market and the economy in general. Irrational exuberance, I do not believe, even begins to define what is currently happening. So anyways, this is kind of curious. Coming from Tom's Hardware, Jensen says NVIDIA's China AI GPU market share has plummeted from 95% to 0. The Chinese market previously amounted to 20 to 25% of the chip maker's data center revenue. So basically, NVIDIA, not that long ago, owned 95% of the GPU market in China, and now they're not selling a good goddamn thing in China, except for the illegal stuff that's going on, black market things. But at least above board, they are not selling into China anymore. And it is kind of curious to be thinking about, like, what does that mean for the future of technology, and basically how AI stacks and all that is going to be built going into the future, right? China is using AI. You have Huawei and Alibaba and all these Chinese technology companies. They are building hardware. They are pushing AI forward. And so it'll be curious to see what happens. What happens when basically the Chinese technology companies don't have to worry about American competition? And then can America compete with that going into the future? I highly question that with our AI policies. I highly question where that's going to go. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang said last week that the company's share of China's advanced AI accelerator market has collapsed from roughly 95% to 0 as U.S. export controls continue to bite. The comment came during a live interview at Citadel Securities' Future of Global Markets 2025 event in New York on October 6th, in which Huang said, quote, "At the moment, we are 100% out of China," adding, quote, "We went from 95% market share to 0%. And that is the American trade policy. You know, the way we are going to balance trade with China is if we keep our companies from selling crap to China. Not really sure how well that works, right? Again, GPUs, high value, high profit margin thing. We were selling those to China. Again, we talk about the trade imbalance, which is supposedly so horrible. And basically NVIDIA's exports to China have absolutely collapsed because, our government is stopping, them from being able to sell to China. Huang didn't name specific products, but his remarks point squarely to NVIDIA's data center GPU line, which is faced rolling waves of export restrictions since October 2022. The company's China-focused 800 and H800 parts were rendered non-compliant by export prohibitions in 2023. So to be clear, under the Biden administration, while a newer design, the H20, has faced licensing hurdles of its own. Basically China doesn't want it. China got a little tired of getting our fourth best AI hardware and told us to bugger off, basically. Quote, I can't imagine any policymaker thinking that's a good idea, that whatever policy we implemented caused America to lose one of the largest markets in the world to 0%, Huang said of the outcome. NVIDIA has previously disclosed that China represents between 20 and 25% of its data center revenue, a segment that generated more than $41 billion in its most recent financial results, representing a 56% year-over-year increase. While that figure includes cloud customers across a wide range of workloads, AI infrastructure remains the company's growth engine. A prolonged clampdown could reshape both demand and supply chains. So basically what he's talking about here is the loss of China, could be worth, 10 to $15 billion per year, I guess. Huang's comments highlight how quickly the dynamic has shifted on the ground. Quote, in all of our forecasts, we're assuming 0% for China. He said, if anything happens in China, it will be a bonus. NVIDIA's cautious guidance comes amid signs of deeper fragmentation in the AI stack. China's hyperscalers and AI labs have increasingly turned to domestic silicon or alternative hardware in response to the export curbs, accelerating efforts to localize compute infrastructure. That's a trend Huang flagged earlier this year when he warned that blanket restrictions could spur development of competitive substitutes. While Huang said that he hopes that NVIDIA's business can return to China in the future, the company has effectively written off the country for the moment. So I think this is just kind of interesting to see, as this whole technology AI war moves forward, as everybody's moving their little 5D chess pieces around and see where it's going to go, right? So at this point, NVIDIA is effectively out of China. Yes, there are black market sales. Yes, there's some other stuff going on. But what they're looking at, they're basically saying for their SEC filings and all that kind of stuff, they are not looking to put down any Chinese sales. The interesting thing then becomes, again, you look at a country of 1.2, 1.4, however many billion people they're at, 50% of the AI engineers and scientists in the world, they're building their own stack. And so if they are completely closed off, if they're not buying any of the American stack, they're going to be building on the Chinese stack. That is an insanely huge market. And so then the question becomes, as that starts leaking out to the rest of the world, what stack is the rest of the world going to go with? I would argue, if you look at how China's done things in the past, I think most people will end up going with the China stack, right? Even if you have technically have subpar hardware, even if you completely and utterly go with the argument that their hardware is subpar, if you can get it for a fraction of the cost, if you can get it for a lot less than the United States would be selling it for, if you can get it without dealing with export restrictions and all of that kind of stuff, if you can get it, again, without dealing with whatever America is doing at this point in time, I would argue it seems like that is a better proposition for a lot of folks out there than trying to go with the American stack. And as more and more stuff gets built on, the different stacks, it'll be curious to see what moats actually get created. At what point will a Stanford student have to be building for Huawei simply because all of the tools that they need are built for Huawei? I think that'll be a curious thing going forward, and we'll see how it works out. Right now, NVIDIA still on cloud nine. NVIDIA still owns the world theoretically. A $4 trillion company. The thing that I warn everybody though is, I remember when Intel was Intel. That's a funny thing now. Like I used to have to say things like, I remember when Yahoo was Yahoo and AOL was AOL. Hell, right now we can see. I remember when Intel was Intel. It was not that long ago that Intel was like the leading chip maker in the world. And now, not so much. Now they're doing whatever they're doing, right? So it'll be curious to see going forward. And again, I think Intel is a curious metaphor for what might happen to NVIDIA, right? They were in the lead. Basically, they seem to own the chip market, the whole 9 yards. They made a couple of missteps, right? They made a couple of missteps. They focused on, the financial game more than the technology game for a while. AMD came up. AMD started actually putting out a lot better quality products. ARM came out of almost nowhere to just take a huge amount of market share. And now Intel, This is what a death spiral looks like, and this is what Intel is doing. I am not saying Intel is in a death spiral, but if you look at the two things, they look very similar. What's kind of curious here is, every death spiral is different. Every death spiral looks different, right? How Yahoo died it was different than how Research in Motion died, which is different than how AOL died, which is different than how Intel has died. One of the interesting things to look at is if you look at NVIDIA and you look at American global policy, will this be a company to die because of that kind of global policy, right? Instead of a policy, right? If you look at China, and China is saying we will loan you money to buy Huawei hardware. We will provide you engineers to implement Huawei hardware. We will do all of these things to support the sales and deployment of our AI technology, which is what we used to do in the United States, right? Loans to other countries, technical expertise, the whole 9 yards. Oh, you want to buy Westinghouse electric generators? Okay, we will loan you money to be able to buy the hardware. We'll give you the resources to be able to install the hardware. Again, that's what we used to do. And so if you look at it, if China is like, we will provide all of these resources for you to buy our AI hardware, get it up to speed, and actually create, profitable outcomes. If you're looking at that option, or you're looking at the option of, at any time the policy may change, export controls may change, you may not be able to gain access to the hardware, the price for the hardware is through the roof. Again, if you're a large company, if you're a nation state, who do you want to go with? And at a time when you really can't trust either of us, right? The idiocy, the dipshittery of saying, oh, you can't trust China. Look, I'm not saying you can't trust China. To be clear, I'm not saying you can't trust China, but you sure as fuck can't trust us either. So if you have two parties, neither of which you can trust, which do you trust more? Anyways, so I'll be curious to see what happens with NVIDIA going forward. So what do you think about this? What do you think about NVIDIA's GPU share in the data center market in China going to 0%? What do you think about this happening? Basically, as NVIDIA stock keeps going up and up and up, they can lose an entire market sector, right? They can have a massive amount of competition open up damn near out of nowhere, and yet the stock market doesn't really seem to care. Does that make you feel comfortable? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just be a real lutnick and do it down there in the comment section. Do remember Silicon Dojo is what I actually care about. SiliconDojo.com. Free the end user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do in Durham, North Carolina. We're having a next class in a couple of days on OpenAI's API. We're going to be having more classes coming up. Do remember free to the end user isn't actually free. We do require crowdfunding to pay for it. There's a donor box link down below if you want to support the things that I do. And with that, see y'all later.